Thank you all for coming tonight. Thank you, Dee Dee, wherever you are, and Jay and the Eccentric for putting this on. You all have been such good supporters of the Community Center, and we couldn't do it without our supporters. So for those of you trickling in, come on in and grab a seat. I just wanted to take a quick minute to thank the Eccentric and Dee Dee. The Community Center is a nonprofit. We are actually not funded by taxpayer dollars. So I see a lot of good supporters out there tonight, and we are grateful. It's because of you that we are able to put on and collaborate with different groups to put on these sort of events. So thank you to the supporters out there. And for those of you who are not supporters yet, we have an email list form in the back that you can put your email list or your email address and your mailing address. Then you can know about events like these, and you have on your chairs a couple of events coming up. You'll be up to date. You'll know everything that's happening here, and we would appreciate your support. So my timer's up. So with that,
perfect timing.
Right, Dan Morrow. Good luck to all our candidates tonight, and thank you.
Thank you very much, and welcome everyone to the Middleburg Community Center and to this, the 2018 Middleburg Candidate Forum. Many thanks to all 10 of our candidates for running and for their willingness to donate so much of their time and talent to service to their fellow citizens. Thanks to the citizens of Middleburg, friends and supporters of Middleburg here tonight, and for those watching online. And especially for citizens of the town. Your votes will indeed shape the future of Middleburg. Thanks again to the Community Center for providing tonight's venue, and to Jay Hubbard of the Middleburg Eccentric, our tech guru, for making it possible to both watch these debates online and record them for public access. And we have a long list of questions that we know we don't have time to get to tonight, and we're going to post those online and let the candidates answer those online if they want to address them. You'll be able to watch these proceedings not only if you're in the room here tonight, but on mbecc.com or middleburgeccentric.com. There's a link, and you can watch and rewatch and download and pass them on to your children.
Hi, Mom.
There you go. So now for the timetable and rules for tonight's forum. The forum will be in two parts. The first with our three candidates for mayor who are seated before you, and then after a short break, our 7 candidates. Isn't that wonderful? Our 7 candidates for 4 open council seats. Time, as you know, is short. There are 10 candidates, and we all want to hear them. To begin each session, each candidate will be given 90 seconds to introduce themselves and outline their top 3 priorities for action by town council. And at the end of their part of the debates, each candidate will also be given a minute and a half to sum up and sell you on voting for them. During each session, I will also give each candidate an opportunity to ask one and only one question that each of their opponents will have to answer. So we think that'll be fun, and given the short time, we couldn't really do a full head-on-head debate, but we think that's as close as we can get. For all the questions, given the short time we have to hear from everyone, we ask the candidates to keep their answers concise if they can. And we also ask members of our live audience to reserve their applause and cheering to the beginning of each session as candidates are introduced, and to the end of each session as we do a close. If everybody's ready, let's begin with our 3 candidates for mayor. You can applaud as their names are called and in alphabetical order. They are Vincent Mattal, Rich Littleton, and Mark Snyder. You're probably wondering about this hat. To avoid the tyranny of alphabetical order, I've assigned a number to each of the candidates, and I'll pull names out of the hat so we don't always go in alphabetical, reverse alphabetical order. So, question 1. In 90 seconds or less, tell us who you are and your top 3 priorities for the town council during your term. And first up is Mark Snyder.
Hello, Middleburg. I think most of you know that I'm Mark Snyder and that I'm running for mayor. I've been actively involved in Middleburg for some 25 years. I first got involved with the now defunct bypass committee in the early 90s to advise council that a bypass such as Leesburg would devastate us. Next, I joined the town's Board of Zoning Appeals and chaired it. Council appointed me to the Planning Commission in 1996, where I served about 10 years and helped write the comprehensive plan. I am proud of the intro I wrote for the land use section, and if time permits, I'll delight in reading it to you. After election to council for almost 20 years ago, I chaired the Land Use Committee. Our most significant achievements were Windy Hills, Virginia Lane, and the Memorandum of Understanding with Salamander. Finally, I am proud of my service on both the Utility Committee and the Wellhead Protection Committee to protect the town's source water. Water issues were my major concern when I originally ran for council, as circumstances were dire. I am eager to continue the work to complete urgent utility improvements, such as the final water main replacements in Ridgeview and a few others I have advocated. I am running at the end of my term on council, which expires June 30. I need your vote May 1st to continue leading council on water improvements and use my extensive and unmatched experience on other issues the town faces in the near future. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Next up, Vincent Batole.
Mic check. Good evening. Wow, there's a lot of people here. I think this is probably more people than voted in the last election. So it's great to see everybody from all over Middleburg and the Strongley community come, and that's one of the things that makes Middleburg a really special place, is that people can come from anywhere and still call Middleburg their home. I'm running for mayor for 3 reasons. Number 1, because I love this community. Number 2, because I really want to help people. This isn't a career move for me. This is pure public service. And number 3, I'm running because Cindy made me do it. My priorities for the next 2 years, if I were elected mayor, are informed by many conversations I've had walking around the community. These aren't my own ideas necessarily. This is from public input, from knocking on people's doors and being invited in. So number 1 priority is to keep Middleburg a small town. Everybody wants to see Middleburg kept a small town. Number 2 is to revitalize our downtown. Everybody wants to see new businesses and they want to see existing businesses thrive. And number 3, which is probably the most difficult, but I've run into a lot of people in town that say the water is really expensive for them. And you know, one person told me that even $20 a month can make a big difference. And so I can't turn a blind eye to that. I want to have that conversation and make the cost of living in Middleburg more affordable. Thank you.
Rich Littleton.
I guess it's me. Well, again, I want to echo what Vincent said, what Mark said. Thank you all very much for coming. It's an important election for the future of Middleburg. Sorry. I also want to thank Mark and Vincent for running. As I can attest, it's not an easy thing to run for mayor of Middleburg. It's a heck of a challenge, and they should be commended for putting their names forward for public service. As many of you know, my name is Bridget Littleton. I was born and raised here. I've had the pleasure of calling Middleburg my home for most of my life. I went to Radford University, then I worked my way through law school at the University of Richmond. Been in aerospace and defense for about 15 years, and then about 2 years ago, I left the industry to start my own business right here in Middleburg, and I'm very proud of that. And I said this on Monday night, but I also want to say this to the folks here. I want to thank you, the community, because I am who I am today because of the people here in this community. And I have a very big debt of responsibility that I owe back to you. So that's really the main reason I'm running for council. or excuse me, for mayor. But real quickly, my 3 priorities are this. Number 1, fiscal responsibility. It's been a long time coming, but the town is in a good financial place, but we have to make sure we ensure that for the future. Number 2, economic and business development. We need to help our businesses on Main Street thrive and be more successful and attract the right types of businesses to Middleburg to enhance the Middleburg experience. Number 3, utilities and water. They've both said it. It's incredibly important. It's about the health and safety of our community. And number 4, protecting the environment that we're in. Our authority stops at our borders. We have to work with Loudoun to protect this rural area. Thanks. And that was 4.
Second question. We solicited questions from the general public, and this one popped up a lot. For the first time, we have 10 candidates running for office, and 5 of them are running as a slate. Are you part of the slate or an independent? Why or why not? We'll start with Bridge Littleton.
Oh, shuffle on the deck.
Randomness. Yes, I am not part of a slate. I'm running, for mayor. It is a new element in politics in Middleburg. I'm not sure if it's progress. One of the things I love about serving on council is that we're all there to represent Middleburg and all of the citizens. I don't know what the dynamic will mean, and we'll see. One of the other things that I think is important is that we are all individually accountable to you, the citizens of Middleburg, one by one. One of the things I actually find is most encouraging, despite what goes on in federal politics, about being on council now, is that about 99% of all of our votes are unanimous. And the reason is because everybody brings their unique perspectives and experience and their relationships with you in the community to the table, and we work together, all 8 of us, to find a consensus that works for just about everybody. And I think it's a tremendous way in which the government of Middleburg works right now, and I would hate to see that upset going forward. So that's why, like I said, I'm running for Middleburg. So, thank you.
Thanks very much. Mark Snyder.
I also am not part of a slate. I agree 100% with what Bridge just said. Middleburg is not a political town per se. I think we're more of a united town. And speaking personally, I can only answer to you for promises I make. I'm very careful about promises I make because I plan to stand behind them after elected. If I make a promise and you don't think I'm owning up to it, then please come up and ask me about it. Call me on it. Talk to me about it. I can't answer for a slate, and I don't think a slate is in the best interest of Middleburg. Thank you.
Wow, a lot of controversy about some people running together. I put together teams, and this is what I do in my life, and this is what I do in my job. And I think that a team is really important to the healthy functioning of our government. And one of the reasons that we decided to run together wasn't as a slate, it was as a team of people that share the same values and have their hearts in the same place, and all want to see Middleburg do really well. And we're not running as a slate so much as a team, and we put in our minds together and our expertise, and that's really going to be the job of the mayor, is to put together a team of people and develop consensus among everybody. And so my team members, Kevin, Kristen, Cindy, and Mimi, they give me strength in my candidacy for mayor. And I really appreciate that. And you guys have been just wonderful for me. Thank you.
Okay, next question. This is as close as we will come to a face-to-face debate. We've asked each of the candidates to ask one question that the other 2 candidates will answer. And during discussions before the debate, it's probably also a good idea to give you an opportunity to answer your own question after the other 2 have answered. So what question do you have for the other 2 candidates Vincent Baton.
Is it one candidate at a time?
No. it's
One question? Both questions?
One question for both candidates.
Okay, so let's take on fiscal responsibility. So what are your plans for the town's cash reserves? So as everybody here knows, the town is in a very successful position since 5 years ago when Salamander arrived, and there has been a revenue surplus. And that surplus has built up into an over $3 million cash reserve. And so my question for the candidates is, what do you see as the future for cash reserves and why?
Well, I was here in the mid-2000s when the town nearly went bankrupt. So I don't think of this as a surplus reserve fund. I think it's a mandatory reserve fund. It's fiscal responsibility. We owe you as a town continued service, whether we're in bonus times, which we may be in now, or when we're in hurting times like we were 10 or 15 years ago. It's terrible to see town finances go down and have to cut and make tough decisions that impact your services. I promise not to do that. I promise to be responsible with the finances here in town.
Well, this is actually a really, really important question, and I thank Vincent for asking it. As Mark said, there's been a past in Middleburg where, it was hand to mouth thanks, Cindy. It was hand to mouth every single day. I mean, employees having to take vacation because we couldn't afford to pay them. So the town's in a good financial position right now. We actually have almost $4 million in surplus, due largely to the impact of Salamander and what I like to call the luxury tourism industry. One of the things, though, that concerns me is about our susceptibility to that industry. If you look at the last recession, luxury tourism industry, when the 2009 recession hit, went down 50%. Now, I've gone back through 20 years of town budgets to look where our funding used to come from. In the past, only about 25% of our town finances came from luxury tourism. Now it's about 65%. If only 16% of the luxury industry for tourism goes down in the next recession, we're underwater. What I propose is we take those surpluses that we have right now and put them into a true rainy day fund, and that are untouchable except when times get really bad, because the next recession will come, and it is our responsibility to ensure that we can continue to provide the services to you, the citizens, that you expect and deserve, without having to raise taxes on citizens when it's the toughest times possible. It is critical that we protect these reserves. Thanks.
Mr. Baton, your opportunity to ask your own question.
This is good background music. So I think one of the things that wasn't discussed is exactly how much reserve there is right now. And if there's $4 million in the bank, that's like mattress under the money, money under the mattress, or mattress under the money. And that's 200% of the town's operating expenses. So we're holding on to 200% of the taxpayers' money right now. The town's policy is only to hold on to 20%. And so I think that we have a great opportunity with these cash reserves to do what was promised when Salamander was built and give services back to the residents and see that the residents see the benefit of this success. Thank you.
Mr. Snyder, your question for your two colleagues.
So I've heard a lot about water, and that's been my focus for most of the 20 years I've been on town council, because it really was awful when I first got on council. I've worked long and hard on it. And my question to both participants, competitors, if you will, is how would you work the utility budget, which is separate from the general fund budget, and improve water services and water utility for the town? Is someone first?
Yes. Mr. Patel.
This is a great question, Mark, and no one has more experience with the water rate model than Mark Snyder. You know, one of the things I'm really concerned about, and when I've been knocking on doors and I hear this firsthand from people, is that the water rates are too high. And it's almost impossible to turn a blind eye to that. And I really think it's essential that we have that conversation. And the conversation, it isn't going to be a decision that the mayor makes, right? This is a conversation that happens among mayor, council, our utility consultants, and the water committee. But I really think that it's essential that this conversation is had about how can we make our utilities affordable for our residents, especially those that are on fixed incomes or seniors or single parents. I really think that it's important that we have that conversation.
Thank you. Mr. Middleton.
Thank you. So, yeah, Mark is right, and so is Vincent. I mean, this is an incredibly complex and important issue. A lot of you probably remember, as I do, in the late 70s and the early 80s, when we literally had dark brown water coming out of our pipes. It is critical to the health and safety of this community that we adequately and properly fund our utility system, not only in its operations, but in its upgrades. This is about your health and safety. I don't want high water rates. I'd love to have free water. But the reality is, it costs us $2 million a year to operate our utility system, and yet the fees we pay in town only generate $1.3 million in revenues. So we actually operate the system at a $700,000 a year loss. And we take that money, that 30%, from other reserves and from other taxes like meals taxes or real estate taxes to ensure we invest in this critical infrastructure. It is one of the most important and vital aspects to what the town does for you, the citizens. And to skimp on that is absolutely criminal. The other thing to understand is not only do we have these expenses, but our utility system right now maintains $4.4 million of debt on top of it. Right? It is extremely fragile and complex, and it is something that has to be looked at very, very carefully.
To answer my own question, I do believe that water services are the most important service this town provides and that affects the health of all of us here in Middleburg. By subsidizing the utility or attempting to do so, we start to strip away all that is in our rates. Our rates include operations, that includes material and service operations, skilled labor that is, and it also includes future replacements. So as things age out of the water system, we will need to replace it. The way it is set up right now, we will have that money. We will not have to add to the utility debt. Thank you.
Mr. Livingston, you're up.
Thanks. So my question is this. All of us cherish the rural area that we live in, and it's important that we have the right relationships and understanding with Loudoun County to protect that, because as I said before, our authority ends at our borders. So right now, Loudoun County is in the midst of rewriting its entire land use plan for the whole county, something required by law every 20 years. My question to the candidates is this: what have you done to this point to engage with the county and the staff to make sure Middleburg's voice is heard? And with the draft plan coming out in the next 15 to 20 days, what elements of it do you not like?
Mr. Snyder.
The land use in this part of Loudoun County is critically important. We have all on council relied mostly on Betsy to communicate our concerns and desires to the county. I will continue that in the future to work directly with members of the Board of Supervisors and anyone on the Planning Commission who is working on the land use plan. This is critical to us. If you cut off the rural nature of the area around us, you strangle us to death. Open space is not an option for Middleburg, it is a requirement. Thank you.
There's no doubt that open space is one of the things that makes Middleburg a great place to live. In fact, that's one of the reasons why my family moved here. My wife and I moved here for the equestrian industry and for the open space and to be a part of the rural community. So I've knocked on a lot of doors, and in all my door knocking, I've never once spoken with anybody who said that they want Middleburg to grow or that they want to do away with the open space. People who live here like to live here because of the rural community. I've also been a part of the Aldi Heritage Association, which is set on preserving historic Aldi. And during my involvement with that Heritage Association, we've seen some big issues come to the forefront, issues that are even coming from the county. So in the middle of Aldi, they were proposing to, and they still are proposing, to knock down 3 historic buildings to make way for a municipal fire station. And I've been part of the conversation with that association to make sure that that doesn't happen, or at least to delay the process. Last I'll say is that this is a conversation that isn't just going to be had the mayor to other stakeholders at the state or county level. This is a conversation that the mayor, the planning commission, the council, and all of the citizens will have an opportunity to have input in. And so I really believe that our best bet against fighting urbanization and suburbanization of our area is for us to all stick together and share a voice that says that we want this area to remain rural and beautiful. Thank you.
It is kind of fun when you get to answer your own question. So, you know, this process for the land planning is called Envision Loudoun. It's been going on for over 18 months, and they appointed what's called a stakeholder committee, 26 representatives throughout the county, hardly any of which, by the way, are from the rural area, to write this plan. It's 1,100 pages, and I've read it all. I am absolutely aghast at the limits and the removal of restrictions on zoning and planning for the rural area. I want to urge everybody here, there is going to be public comment sessions for only 2 weeks, May 15th to June 1st, where we as a community can come together and put our comments in this land use plan. This plan is critical. It is the document which will govern all growth in Loudoun County outside the town borders. The number one thing that offends me about this plan, in the prior plan there was over 15 pages of policy about how wonderful the rural areas were and how critical it was to protect these areas for future generations to come. They've all been removed. There is no policy statement in there about the importance of these rural areas. And these are important policies. That is how we protect Middleburg and we protect our rural area for generations to come, because what is in that plan is what people will be allowed to do. So I urge all of you to participate in the Envision Loudoun process. Go on to Loudoun County's website. You have got to get involved and make your comments heard. Thank you.
We truly have 3 excellent candidates because we had a list of many, many questions, and you've covered the top 7 questions in this exchange. So
Dan, are we done?
To be committed. Actually, we're right on time. It's time for closing statements, and Mr. Littleton, you're up.
Oh. Thank you. Well, as I said at the beginning of my statement, you know, one of the reasons I'm running for mayor is because I truly do care about this community. This is a special place. A lot of people call Middleburg a charming town, a cute little quaint place, and all that kind of stuff, but it really isn't. For all of us here, it is a home, right? And it is where we've chosen to make our lives. And, you know, the last generation worked extremely hard to protect this area and protect Middleburg for us to enjoy it today. And we have the responsibility as a community. It's not the mayor, it's not the candidates, it's not the council. It's our responsibility as a community to protect it today for the generations of the future. You know, that's one of the reasons that I'm running for mayor. That's one of the beautiful things that Betsy Davis, our outgoing mayor, has done for us. But it takes a strong sense of leadership and a strong sense of commitment. And that's one of the things I hope to be able to bring to you as the next mayor of Middleburg. And no matter what, I will always follow through on the commitments that I make to you. And if there's a reason I can't, throw me out. But anyway, I appreciate your trust. And you know, that's the other thing too. It's not about a vote. What we're asking for is your trust. And that's something that has to be earned. And I hope I've earned your trust. I hope I've earned your vote. But if no matter what, make sure you get out on May 1st. Thank you.
Mr. Pantola.
It's closing statements already.
Yeah.
This is fast-paced. Okay. So one of the things that we haven't touched on is the importance of bringing in new businesses and revitalizing our downtown. I think that there's no doubt in the world that we have way too many empty storefronts. And we really have to work hard as a mayor, as a council, as a team to bring in new businesses. I think that there's a few things that we can do to bring in new businesses. Number one, we have to get more competitive. Compared to Leesburg, our meals tax is 4%, compared to Leesburg's 3.5%. And our business license taxes are 10% higher. And so there's no question, if a business is looking for a new location and competition and competitive environment is important to them, of course they're going to go to Leesburg. So Middleburg has to get far more competitive about its business license and meals taxes. Number two is that we can't survive on weekend traffic alone. Middleburg has to make an effort to become a 7-day-a-week town. And the 7-day-a-week town is really important because our restaurants and shops, they can't survive on people that are just coming in on the weekends. And so we really need to make a strong effort to bring in professional services and businesses that are going to be here 7 days a week. Number three, you have to be proactive. If we're going to go out there and bring new businesses, you're going to need a mayor that's going to stand on his toes, that's going to go out there and vouch for the community and advocate and promote to bring new businesses here, and that's what I will do. Thank you.
It really is a delight to run for mayor in this town, of all towns. Since I appear to have some time, I will read you the land use intro that I wrote many years ago when I first got on to the Planning Commission. And the land use section is considered its most important part because it defines the goals, objectives, and policies that determine the town's future physical character. Middleburg is not a new town searching for an identity. It is not seeking to duplicate suburban housing or shopping center development occurring in neighboring areas. Rather, Middleburg has distinguished itself over the past 200 years as a small, independent, rural village of historic significance and natural beauty with well-established residential, agricultural, and commercial land uses. The town is at a point, this was 20 years ago, where restoration and preservation rather than growth from new development are primary goals for the future. Thank you very much.
Gentlemen, thank you all. You were concise, on time. We are running about 4 minutes over. It could not have been better. So let's have a big round of applause for all. Okay, we're going to take a short break. I'm going to ask the 7 candidates for council seats to please come and take their seats. Don't go far. We'd like to start as soon as the candidates are ready, the mics are ready, and that'll give us a little more time for questions. Thanks again. See you shortly. Okay, everyone. Welcome back for the second half of tonight's forum. This among our 7 candidates for seats on Middleburg's Town Council. Applaud them as their names are called. We're going to do it again in alphabetical order. And so we'll have more time, since we have 7 candidates. Let's not applaud, please, after they answer the questions. It takes time. It's really nice, but since there are 7, if we'll hold it, applaud when I introduce them and applaud at the end, and let's try to roll through these questions and give everybody a chance to say what they have to say. So, running for Middleburg Town Council are, in alphabetical order, Kevin Hazard. You're going to applaud them after I call their names this time. Cindy Pearson. Peter Leonard Morgan. Darlene Kirk. Mimi Stein. And Kristen Ronald.
Chris Bernard.
Oh, and Chris Bernard. Yes, I did say Chris Bernard. Oh, I did, yeah. All right, never mind, I'm old. All right, the same rules will, I know, the same rules will apply for the council debates as we applied earlier for the candidates for mayor. Each will be given a minute and a half to introduce themselves and outline their top priorities for action by town council, and a minute and a half to sum up at the end of the session. We're also going to give them an opportunity, as we did during the mayoral session, to ask one and only one question, which their colleagues can answer, and then they'll answer themselves at the end. Given the time constraints, again, we ask the candidates to be concise. If you can answer a question in less than a minute and a half, that's great. We'll have more time for questions. And please, I hate to do this because I know how hard it is. I'm going to ask the members of our live audience to refrain from applauding and cheering until the very end. If that's acceptable, let's go to question 1. Tell us who you are and your top priorities for action by council. And first up is Chris Bernard.
Oh, there we go. Are we standing? No?
No, you can do it.
Okay, we'll stand up. Okay, so I guess I would like to start off by addressing why. Why am I running for town council? You know, I've lived in town for a couple of years now, but I did grow up nearby. And I remember coming to Middleburg as a little kid and thinking how cool of a town it was. And when I moved back to the Northern Virginia area, I decided that this is where I wanted to be, and this is where I wanted to start a family, because it's home. And I really do think of Middleburg as home. And I've always had a strong feeling about service and giving back to the community, whether it's through coaching or volunteering, and so that's why I'm here. And I think probably like everyone up here would say, and as the 3 guys said before, there's 3 or 4 really big issues in town that we are all focused on. And it's business and economic development, so it's making sure we get new and exciting businesses in here, but also support the ones that are already here. It's keeping Middleburg small, the nice rural town that we all love. And it's addressing our utilities, because it's very important that we have not just affordable utilities, but high quality and safe utilities as well. So we need our water to be safe and affordable. And so addressing that issue is very important. And my background is in analytics and business building, and I'm really excited about getting involved and looking at data points and trying to make educated decisions to move us forward into the future. Thank you.
Hold your applause, please. Next up is Mimi Stein.
Sorry?
You know, I know I have to stand up. Okay. All right. Hi. Let's see. Well, I'm running for council because I felt it was a fairly natural progression of my life here in Middleburg. I moved here about 20 years ago for a job, and that job allowed me to work in town for a good many years. I ran a business for over 10 years. I got involved in many different volunteer groups, and so I know a lot of you in the audience. And then I got a new job, and my new job took me out of town again, and yet I was able to move the office back to town. So my whole goal was to be in Middleburg, be part of Middleburg in every way possible, and being on council seemed like a natural next step. Anyway, briefly, when I did run the business for 10 years, I got involved with all the businesses in town, and I have I believe, a strong perspective on what would make a business work here in town, what kind of businesses we need to serve our residents, as well as be intriguing to people coming into town and looking for destinations. So I really want to be part of that initiative, or not initiative, but, an ongoing process to keep the town invigorated by bringing in the right kinds of businesses. I think I have a lot to offer in that area. And the other thing is I really just love working on all the committees I've been on for so many years. I like working with everybody. I know, really briefly, we're running for these positions on a team, but the idea that our team will grow. And I have no desire to run in a tiny little group or in a clique or anything like that. I mean, eventually we're going to work with everybody, and I look forward to that.
Thank you, Mimi. Next up is Peter Leonard Morgan.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for coming today and taking time out of your day to meet the candidates this evening. My name is Peter Leonard Morgan, and I had the distinct privilege of being elected to the Town Council at a special election in November 2016 to fill an unexpired term, which is why I'm up for re-election so quickly. It's an honor to represent the citizens of Middleburg, but it is a very serious commitment, and it's one that should not be taken lightly. On May the 1st, I will be one of 7 candidates vying for 4 seats, including my own. It's undoubtedly a most important election, probably one of the most important for decades, actually, with 3 mayoral candidates that you've just met who will be hoping to occupy the seat that our wonderful Betsy Davis has been occupying for the past more than a decade. And Betsy, thank you so much for everything you've done for the citizens. Thank you so much for what you've done for the town of Middleburg, and personally for me since I joined the council. Every decision we make affects the lives of all our citizens, and those citizens are the ones who put us in our position, so we have a lot of a big duty of responsibility to them. I suspect that all the council candidates here have essentially the same aspirations, namely to preserve the historic nature and character of Middleburg. As much as possible to protect Middleburg, as we've heard about before, to protect Middleburg from encroachment from outside, and to keep our stores occupied by successful and independent, diverse businesses. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Peter. Next up, please. No applause. Next up, Kristen Noggle. I hate to ask you not to applaud, but time. Kristen.
I'm Kristen Noggle, and I decided to run for council after discussions with Vincent and with friends and neighbors, and somebody had to do it to help protect the town and keep it small. I escaped suburbia to move here 20 years ago, more than 20 years ago, and I moved into town 10 years ago, and I would hate to see it change. So we need some new businesses, and I'm looking forward to working with whatever the team of council and mayor ends up being to bring new businesses into town. We need a thriving commercial district, and we also need people to be able to get into Federal Street and areas that are not as accessible. We also need to include everyone, all the residents, and so we've been walking around listening to people, listening to their concerns and everybody. And so I hope to engage more residents also to get them involved. And then we need to serve those residents first. So that's what I hope to do. And I've been on many teams my whole life, and that's what we have to do to all work together to serve the town of Middleburg.
Thank you. Cindy Pearson.
Hello, everyone. Most of you here know me. I'm Cindy Pearson. Middleburg is my hometown. I've lived here the majority of my life. Some of you even know my family. I went to Middleburg Elementary School. I grew up here at the community center during the summers and vacations. I swam in their pool. I worked at many businesses throughout town in my working years, a lot to say the least. And my last go-around was working at the town office, and I retired there. September of last year. And after retiring, I realized that I really missed being part of the town. So that's why I decided to run for town council. I think some of the major issues we need to do or to be aware of is communication is the biggest one. You, the citizens, need to know more of what council is doing and the town employees to communicate the way things are done for the town. It took me many years working with the town to realize what you can and cannot do as an employee. And I don't think citizens realize how hard or how much business goes through the town every day. My other concerns are, of course, the businesses in town, but we do need to work together to preserve the businesses we have. And then we also need to work to bring the new businesses in. So that's why I'm running for town council.
Thank you. Darlene Kirk.
Hi, my name is Darlene Kirk and I live in Ridgeview and I've lived there all my life. Yes, I'm one of those lifelong Middleburgers. I'm seeking re-election after serving 18 years on council. I am currently the vice mayor, the chairman of the Personnel and Finance Committee, chairman of the Health Center Advisory Board, and chairman of the Ad Hoc Committee for Town Properties. I've also served on the Planning Commission and served as the vice chair for the Planning Commission. Most importantly, as a lifelong resident, I want to keep Middleburg the same small town it has always been, friendly, loving, and kind. That's our community. Institutional memory is essential during periods of transition. We've seen a lot of transition in just the past 2 years on council. This will continue with the election of a new mayor. My history of service provides a depth of firsthand experience unmatched by any other candidate for council, and I hope you will allow me to continue to work for you on the following important issues. My 3 priorities are continue to upgrading our utilities, consolidate the properties we own and make the best use of them, and protect our cash reserves. I am most proud of the fact that our town now has the largest cash reserves in town history, and it's invested in accordance with town and state codes. I am seeking re-election to continue to grow our cash reserves and make sure that upcoming and future products don't strain or abuse those reserves, because not too long ago we were in dire straits. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And Kevin Hazard.
Oh, you put it back up. You can't see it, but there's a minute and a half symbol here, and it disappeared, so I didn't know how much time I had. I'm Kevin Hazard, and I've been in town for about 15 years. My wife and I came here with the Middleburg Country Inn. We loved running a business here. But we started coming here when we were about 16. Got a driver's license. Sometimes when school was in and we kind of disappeared for the day, we'd come out here. It's one of those towns that we knew we loved it when we were 16. And we finally got an opportunity to come here, 15 years ago, and we actually sold our business and we stayed because we love it so much. I've been on council for 2 terms. I really would like one more, just one more. 3, what's this, 3 steps, 3 terms? Give me 3 terms. It's an old song. I've also been on the Planning Commission for 10 years, and I'd like to continue that too. I think Mark talked about it a little bit, we're also going through an upgrade to our comp plan, and we all have a lot of issues, but there's a couple of other things that I think are important going forward. Federal Street has not been a priority. I think it needs to be a big priority in the next decade, and we're working on that from the Planning Commission and at the council level. So that needs to be added to those 3 or 4 big things. We also have a very strong arts community, and we need to keep that strong. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Second question, this will go to first Mimi Stein. What's your view of the town's financial condition? What, if any, threats on the horizon concern you most? And what would you suggest we do about it?
What was the second? Oh, all right. What was the second part? What was,
Yeah.
what am I?
What do you think about the town's financial condition, and what keeps you awake at night? What worries you? What are your top concerns, and what would you do about it?
Okay, well, at the risk of repeating myself to some extent, it would be to preserve the reserves and to keep our tax base more diversified. You know, just depending on Salamander, that's what keeps me up at night. Believe it or not, I think about it a great deal. And so, as I said before, I'd like to dedicate myself to making sure that we bring vital businesses that are able to serve the community and stay and be successful.
Darlene Kirk.
I have a lot.
Well, I know that our finances, especially in the general fund, are very healthy right now. And we're looking at expanding or building a new combined town office and police station. And I'm concerned, a little bit concerned about that, because I want to build for now and for the future. And I want to build on the land that the town already owns. I don't want to buy another piece of property and then start all from brand new. And that would significantly raise the cost. So that's a concern for me. And I'm working closely with the town's consultant for space needs. I'm also concerned about our downtown buildings that are empty, and I have been working very closely with our economic development coordinator to get those filled, and I know he has been actively recruiting businesses to come here, and I want to empower him as chairman of the finance and personnel committees to be able to do what he needs to do to get more businesses in town. Thank you.
Cindy Pearson.
Thank you. I worked at the town when we were going through that recession. At that point, when I was employed there, we didn't even have money to buy Post-its for a while. The budget, we didn't get raises for a few years, or cost of living even. So I know how hard that is to go through that, and I don't want that to happen to us again. What does concern me most is us going through that again. And if, as Bridge and Mark and others said earlier, most of our income comes from Salamander. And as we know, corporate doesn't, let us, or corporate doesn't give people money to go out and stay at Salamander or have their conventions and things there, and that would be the first part that goes. So we need to bring other businesses in that we get income from them and think about that. I think that's about it.
Thank you. Peter Leonard Morgan.
If I could humor you with an analogy, I'm in the real estate business, so no one pays me a salary. If I don't sell a house or buy a house, I don't get paid. So when I do sell a few houses and I put money away in the bank, it makes me feel a bit better. But I still don't go out and spend too much because I think it could all go wrong. People stop buying houses. I could lose my amazing skills at selling real estate. And then it could all go wrong. So I do liken it to that. I think having money in the bank is important because we do need a rainy day fund. Middleburg, as we've heard, has had the experience in the past of problems with finances. We've been very fortunate with Salamander. We've recently been quite fortunate, I have to say, with a number of nice businesses that have come into town. But I was devastated to see one or two leave recently, which is, it almost ruins the whole thing for all of us to see that happen. So our priority is to keep those businesses in town and work on programs that will encourage businesses to come to town and stay in town and want to be in town and bring visitors to town who are going to spend their money in town. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, Chris Bernard.
Okay, so as everyone's kind of already said, we're in a good place right now, and that's great. But like we've heard, the cash reserves will only go so far, right? So if we hit another economic downturn, we're going to be in trouble. And so I think, as Peter did, you draw an analogy to our personal day-to-day lives. I mean, you need to have money put away in case of emergency. And as Bridge said before, being able to fund the utility system when times are tough. I mean, the last thing you want to do when we're in a recession is to raise taxes on people, but we have to be able to provide those services to the town. So I think it's really important to look at our cash reserves. And what exactly that number is something that we have to figure out, but it's certainly the biggest issue that we need to address. I think that's really it.
Thank you. Kevin Hazard.
What keeps me up at night? I look at the empty storefronts, and that's not something that's Middleburg. That's across the country. And so what keeps me up at night is how do we fill them, and how do we know the right businesses to fill them? Retail is becoming increasingly difficult, and I don't have the right answer for that. But I think that's something as a council, as a town, we need to work on. And it's the kind of thing, you make a plan today, and if you spend a lot of money making a plan and it shifts, you're in the wrong place. And I'll give you one example. You know, there's been changes in other industries. Let's take like VHS tapes and Beta. Okay, now Beta was a better product, but VHS won. A lot of people invested a lot of money, and Beta lost their shirt. So we need to really focus, and we do have a good economic developer, and we need to really try and focus on what we can do to make those changes, but stay flexible. Because if we're not flexible, we could get caught holding the bag. We're going fully in this direction, and we get burnt. So we need to be flexible, but we need to be imaginative.
Kristen Nottle.
I'd like to add to what Kevin said a little bit about being flexible, using the money we have and not wasting funds. We do need a new building for the town hall, and we own the health center, and we might have to be flexible and innovative to renovate that and put the services that we need in there, rather than buying a new property and building a 3-story, 10,000 square foot building. My background in interior design taught me that there are ways of renovating and making space where you didn't think there was space. And then there's a expense that was talked about recently, website for $30,000. And I think that we can find more creative ways to spend even smaller amounts like that. That could be a competition for college marketing and coding classes. It doesn't have to be a $30,000 expense for town, and that's going to help us bring businesses and people here.
Thank you very much. Next question, and the first goes to Chris Bernard, and the question is, what are your recommendations to keep Middleburg's critical water and sewer infrastructure safe, sustainable, and this is a big question from the general public, affordable?
All right, thank you. That's a great and very complicated question. So our utilities in town, I mean, I know we all live in town, or most of us live in town. The water's not great. And so for me, it's how do we find the appropriate balance between the affordability and the quality and the safety of our water. And so I know we have a big project coming up where we're maintaining and upgrading our water systems, and that's going to play a big role in this. But it's, again, like we all keep talking about it, it's being creative and being flexible and finding different opportunities to find different areas to save money, so that we're not reliant on servicing our utilities from other parts of our budget. Because as Bert stated, the fees that we pay for our water don't fully service the actual cost of operating it. And so that's something that I think we need to remedy, but not at the sake of the overall quality and health of the water.
Thank you. Mimi Stein.
Okay, well, I think about the water a lot too, but not really so much at night. Like Mark said before, I actually remember the water quality being much less than it is today. And we had a boiled water order, I think, when I first moved here, that lasted for months. And I had never experienced anything like that. And the water is far better than it ever has been. And I can tell you that I'm on planning commission, and I've been on other committees, and almost every time we get together, an official committee or even an unofficial committee, believe me, talking about the water, it comes up. Everybody has this concern. There is a tremendous amount of focus on it. We review the condition of the water and the equipment that services, the sewer and the delivery and the wells and the pumps all the time. So I just guess that we should keep focusing on it, whoever is the mayor, and when I'm on council, I will do whatever I can to support their work on that plan.
Thank you. Cindy Pearson.
Yes, I believe we do have some water issues here in town. I know that the new development down off of J Street, I forget the name of your development, they have darker water because they're in a lower end of town. But I personally don't think the water bills are that high if you watch how you're using your water. I think some communication to folks on helpful hints of how to save water, maybe not stand in the shower for 20 minutes or half an hour at the time. You'd be surprised what that does. And working at the town, we'd always have people come in, and we were usually able to solve their problem if they had a high water bill, or figure out why it was so high. So I think there's things that the council and the employees of the town can communicate to you, but as others have said, we have to, take care of our wells and our sewer, and it does cost a lot of money, so we have to be aware of that.
Thank you. Kristen Lago.
I think there are, again, creative ways of using less water. If you want your water bill to be lower, you do have to use less water, and some people don't realize how much their washer and their dishwasher uses. And I've had roommates and had my water bill triple, and I had to say, Navy showers. But we don't want to do that all the time, but that is one way to address that. Again, working with council, we're just going to have to be creative and see if we can keep the water cleaner and maybe, I don't know if we can get the rates down. It is a very difficult thing, but we're going to have to serve the citizens somehow.
Kevin Hazard.
I defy anybody in here to look at the budget and fully understand how it works. I commend Mark because I know he's put a lot of time into the rate model and making that work. I spent a couple hours a night for the last couple of nights trying to figure out exactly how it works. It's not easy, and I'm pretty good with numbers. But we have a good water system, and again, there's been a lot of work that's gone into it over the last couple of years. When Salamander was annexed into the town, one of the things they did is they built us a plant. And so we do have some excess capacity. And so maybe we could do something with that. Another thing that we've done is we had outsourced it to the county, we brought it back in. We now have a really good company running it, and that helps our money situation. As far as rates, that's a difficult thing, but I think what we can do is look at the lowest rate. I don't know if everybody knows it, but we have about 20% of the housing in Middleburg is subsidized. And we have a certain percentage of people that are on fixed income. And I'm not saying something you cut there. So let's say you take the lowest rate and you say for X amount of gallons, we cut that in half or something. Sit down and look at it as a group. Is there something we can do to make the people on fixed incomes better without hurting us as a group?
Thank you. Thank you. Darlene Kirk.
Well, I've lived here, as I said, all my life, so I've lived through the boiled water, the brown water, the no water. And thankfully, we're getting some improvements in Ridgeview because I have no water pressure, and I haven't, and neither did my parents. But our water is very safe, and like Kevin said, we have an excellent, excellent company that's there every day. Saturdays, Sundays, they're working there, watching everything at our plants, all of our plants, to make sure there are no issues. And we've been really, I think, very blessed. The town has to have them because they are ensuring that our water is always safe. As far as rates and how much people pay, you really can't compare our rates to the rest of Loudoun County because we're a smaller town, and thus there's a smaller group of people paying for the same thing that Percival needs or Leesburg needs. But compared to other small towns around the state, we're comparable. I know that's not a great answer. I know that there are organizations that do help people who can't pay their bills. And I know that the town, through the Health Center Advisory Board, does donate money to that, different groups like that, so they can help people who do need help with their bills. Thank you.
Thank you. Peter Leonard Morgan.
So, unfortunately, economies of scale do come to play here, and Darlene's referenced it. The fact is we have about 750 residents compared with Leesburg that's got, I don't know the number, 10, 15, 20,000 residents. So the total cost of the water rates is split amongst far more people there. Someone also mentioned to me that when we had the new water system installed, it was really like the Ferrari of water systems, and maybe we could have had the Corvette of water systems, and it might have been a bit less expensive. But without being too flippant, I think our rates, yes, they're a little bit higher, but we've got to remember also that our property taxes are lower than anywhere else in those towns where the water rates are higher. So where we are able to decide amongst council that we feel that we can lower the property rates, and we don't even have a personal property on vehicles, for example, we do that. So there is a counterbalancing effect. Water is water. It's a product we supply. It has a cost. We know we're not paying for the full amount, but we're contributing to it. And I think the water system has improved even in the 5 years that we moved here, and certainly with the new pipe work that's going to be taking place in Ridgeview and other areas, it's only going to get better. So I'm actually a big fan of the water system, so I apologize for being different to everyone else. But thank you.
Thank you. Next question. What environmental standards should be met by new construction or renovation projects undertaken by the town? What other green initiatives, if any, should the town pursue? Why or why not? And I'll address that first to Chris Bernard.
Guess I just get to go first every time.
Number.
Yeah, great. So, as far as new building in the town and development, I think we absolutely should look at the environment, because that's a big hot topic with everybody, maintaining our rural status and our small town charm. And so as we are developing in the town or renovating buildings, absolutely we need to look at what can be the most energy efficient. We've been talking about water efficiency. I mean, there's so many different creative ways that you can take a building and make it still beautiful and charming and rustic looking, but up to the modern environmental standards.
Thank you. Peter Leonard Morgan.
Thank you.
I'd like to say that I'm also the council representative on the Go Green Committee, which Mayor Davis volunteered me onto when I joined the council. And at that time, I really didn't know what the Go Green Committee was, which is very embarrassing to announce. But I have to tell you that the Go Green Committee is a fantastic committee. I love it. I work with some great people, and we're developing some wonderful initiatives into town. So what that's done for me is it's made me look outside and realize how much we can do without great effort with community input. Certainly in terms of construction, new construction, there's no question that we need to look forward. Without getting political, we live in a time right now where there's a lot of pullback from great developments over the last 20, 30 years, and I think that's tragic. I think as a town, Middleburg really should be at the forefront. We are a heal city, a healthy eating, active living city. We are looking to be prominent when it comes to green initiatives, sustainability, energy production. I mean, to become a zero fossil fuel energy production town would be fantastic. It's a huge goal. Some are doing it. I think we can work towards it, and that's what I'd like to see.
Thank you. Darlene Kirk.
I will tell you, Peter has done an outstanding job on the Go Green Committee. You really have. And they have done an outstanding job. I think though, as a council, we have to require that anyone building in town adheres to the most stringent of green initiatives that we can do. It is so important to protect our groundwater, to protect the beauty of our town. That's what brings people out here, our town's beauty. And they like to walk around, but it's a nice sunny day. You can't beat being out here walking up and down the streets. We're having a cleanup event this Saturday, and I hope everybody will come to that and help us keep our town beautiful. But again, we've got to make the town's requirements as stringent as possible to keep everything as green that's being built. That is one thing I've talked about with Jeff Stodgel, who is the gentleman that is looking at building our new, coming up with ideas for our new town hall and police station, that I want to make that building as green as possible. And he's very much on board for that. Thank you.
Thank you. Kevin Hazard.
One of the nice things about living in Middleburg is that the bulk of our downtown is in historic district. So we already have a leg up in that we have very strong standards for that part of town. Also, through the Planning Commission, we've worked on zoning issues as far as height and density, and that's also important. So we have two things that we're already doing. One thing we can do, there are a number of organizations, and this is hard to require, but there's a strong movement in the building industry and actually some municipalities do it. I know in Washington, if you build, you have to be LEED certified. And LEED, L-E-E-D, is a certification of green, and they go from platinum to gold or silver, platinum, gold. Maybe that's something we haven't looked at that we can look at, and that would help us, because there's already standards out there that we can use. Maybe we can bring LEED standards into town. So if you're outside of the historic district, we go to LEED standards, and maybe that's something we can work on as a town.
Thank you. Kristen Noggle.
I think any new building, whether it's in town, if it's a historic district, I agree with Kevin that should be first and foremost, it should fit in, but anything that's outside of the historic district should meet the highest standards, and there are standards. We don't need to reinvent the wheel, but we can look at using reclaimed products. I don't know if you all have been to Tri-County and Marshall. They have a beautiful building that has tons of reclaimed wood, and they did as much as they could to make it a green building, and it is possible to do. So I think we just have to reach out to the experts and to the standards that are already there to make sure that we work with that.
Thank you. Mimi Stein.
I knew it was going to be me next. Okay. Well, everybody's been talking about buildings. I would go back to Go Green. And once upon a time, I know that, and maybe there's you have something published now that really serves individuals in their households. I'd like to see some more educational material come out that we could, disseminate around the community. We can talk about water usage. We can talk about the different types of chemicals people should and shouldn't be using in their homes. Go back to re-explaining light bulbs. I thought I knew how to use energy-efficient light bulbs, and I went to buy some new ones, and the whole world has changed once again with light bulbs, and I don't understand it. So if I don't, I'm sure a lot of other people don't either. It'd be nice if we could work with Go Green and kind of be the community that knows all this stuff, and then also influence the restaurants. I'd like to be able to go into every single one of the restaurants in town and see recyclable takeout containers and see compostable silverware, and let's see that.
Thank you. Cindy Pearson.
Well, I agree with everything that everyone has said here, and I think they answered the question very well, and Peter has done a great job with Go Green. I sat on that committee for a short amount of time, and it's really a lot of work, and my hat's off to you, Peter. And the only other thing I can add, other than a little bit of what everybody else has said, is that don't forget to plant trees. And we have a great Arbor Day that comes up the end of April to make sure you attend that. And, just do things, plant bushes and trees, and it would help our environment. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Next question, and this will address two issues really that the mayor's talked about, and that's the role of Middleburg and small towns in general in county government and also in education. So what are your views on the importance and role of Middleburg's charter school, and what do you think town council should do about it? We'll start with Chris Bernard.
We already handed him the mic.
So, you know, in regards to Middleburg being part of the county, I think, you know, we're a small town, but we have a pretty big voice. I mean, we've been here for a long time, and we have a small and engaged, as you can see by everyone here, community. And the charter school, to me, fills a need. I live right down the street from it. And, I mean, I think the closest other school is out in St. Louis. And I have friends and family who had to take the bus all the way to Loudoun Valley, or, you know, some of the other schools. So I think having the charter school in town is great. I mean, it's a part of the community, and I mean, I'm expecting a baby any day, and I would love to be able to have him walk down the street and go to the charter school. So I think it's really important that we keep it around, and I know that there's been talk in the county of cutting the funding or trying to get rid of it, and I just think it's irresponsible. So I think it's something that we should really strive to protect.
Thank you. Darlene Kirk.
I've been working on council on this issue as well. Loudoun County would like to surplus it, basically, like get rid of it, and they'd like the town to take it over. But the town doesn't really want to be landlords to anybody. We are landlords in the health center, but we want our charter school. And I went there to school, and so many of my friends, Cindy went there, and several of you in the audience did theirs too. And I will do whatever I can and fight at county level if I have to keep the charter school there and to keep it open. It is so important to Middleburg. It's just such a vital piece of the community, and our children deserve it. Thank you.
Thank you. Peter Leonard Morgan.
I lived in Hillsborough, Virginia, where there's a very similar school, and it also turned into a charter school. And while my children were there were threats of it closing, and we fought as a community to keep it open, and it turned into a charter school. My kids had a great kindergarten and first to third, fourth, fifth grade education there. I've written to Jill Turgeon, who I had met a couple of years ago, who's very receptive and very against the closing of the charter school. I get the feeling there's a strong sentiment against closing the charter school. The charter school is important for the Middleburg. The charter school provided 40 kids to do the fun run last year, and unfortunately it was spring break this year and we had 4. This town needs its children, it needs its school, and as far as I'm concerned, on council, I will fight tooth and nail to keep it a charter school. But unfortunately, Darlene is absolutely right. There's a big problem with us taking it on as a town property in terms of immense potential costs. So we need to find an alternative with Loudoun County Public Schools. And I believe that may happen if we all work hard enough on it. Thank you.
Thank you. Mimi Stein.
Okay, well, I'll make this short, I guess. I was very proud of this town when, you know, the charter school emerged out of what happened with Middleburg Elementary, and I would just join Darlene in saying we need to go to whatever school board meetings are available to us to attend, find out what's going on, and have very loud voices so that that school does not get surplused.
Thank you. Kristen Lyle.
I think it's also very important to have the school there. I remember walking to school in first grade when I lived in a small town in Illinois. My sister and I were first in grade and kindergarten, and we could literally walk to school by ourselves and back home. And I think having that school there is very important, and so we need to get everybody involved and all the residents to go to the meetings and to stay involved so that we can keep it there.
Thank you. Kevin Hazard.
Loudoun County is not trying to change it. It's actually the school board, and they're not trying to get rid of the charter school. What they're trying to do is surplus the land. And that's a very difficult situation, and we've been in contact and we're trying to work something out on that. It's not a good idea for the town to be, as Darlene said, the landlord. What we can do, those of us who've lived here a while, we know that the county tried to shut the elementary school down a couple times. We'd get right up to the end and they'd let us keep it for a couple years. And then, but every 2 years, it was almost like clockwork. They said, we're gonna take away your school. a group of parents got together and said, we'll do a charter school. They worked very hard, and I spoke at the school board, and I know Betsy did, and Darlene did, and a number of it, in fact, they shut Betsy down, which kind of irritated a lot of people from Middleburg. But that's what we need to do. There's really two issues. One's the surplusing of the land, and I think there's real sentiment against the school board. I know that the Board of Supervisors said, why would you surplus land when there's an active school? So when that issue comes up, we'll keep you informed, and as many of us as possible should go speak at those school board meetings.
Thank you. Cindy Pearson.
As you all are here in town, and when Hill School goes on break, if the charter school is on their spring break, this town is vacant. When you go downtown during the day, you can get the post office, you can get a parking spot. It's kind of scary how quiet the town is without those schools. And we want to do everything here in the western end of the county. That seems to be who they pick on first. We need to do everything we can to keep this property from being under surplus. And like Kevin said, everybody here needs to make their voice heard. Thank you.
Thank you. Last question before summaries. Currently a member of the general public can appear at Town Council's regular monthly session and speak or ask a question of the mayor and Town Council. And they have 3 minutes on the agenda. Max, with no guarantee of a direct response from council or the mayor at that time. Should council institute a regular public Q&A session similar to town halls in New England? And we'll start with Peter Leonard Morgan.
Next time.
So the public comment 3 minutes, I think, is a fantastic forum because it's really an opportunity for members of the public to state their complaints, perhaps, state their case, and there is no response from council. However, invariably, something happens after that. There have been issues that I don't want to go into in detail because some of them are confidential, but we have worked to fix some problems when someone comes to council. And then we privately go to that citizen and explain, what we've done, and thank you very much for bringing it to our attention. Sure, I think town halls are great. I think people in our position should be accountable, and I think that we should be interrogated and questioned, and if you don't like us, you get rid of us. But we need to do what's right for you and our town, and I'm all for it. I think it's a great idea. Thank you.
Mimi Stein.
Okay. Well, the first thought I had about that, and I know it's been a while, but I had been one of those people that had an opportunity to speak in front of council. Maybe there's a hybrid situation. Obviously, council can't come to a consensus and can't answer on the spot. That would be very difficult and probably non-productive, but perhaps afterward, and not just if something would result, but maybe a very directed response could be done privately or at the next meeting or something along those lines. So the person feels that they'll get an answer one way or the other, and not just wonder.
Thank you. Kevin Hazard.
If I'm approached on the street and somebody asks me a question, and I think it's something that I think the whole council should hear, I've encouraged people to come to council and use that 3 minutes. And I agree with Peter. I think even though we don't respond at that time, we do think about it. I think people go back and go through back channels. We do try and work on issues. I think we shouldn't change that because we're there 2.5 hours anyway. And sorry, that's not right. But no, three minutes at a time. You can get your question out or even your viewpoint. A lot of times it's not a question, it's a viewpoint. I think this should be done, and I think it's important for council to hear it. And then if it's important, come back to the town and get it put on the agenda, and we can spend more time on it. So that would be that. And as far as a town hall meeting, I smell something, maybe the eccentric might like to do something with that, and I think it would be a great idea. Maybe we have them capped quarterly, and I think any kind of interaction, we are a small community, we talk to each other, but if it needs to be formal, it needs to be a town hall, let's do it.
Thank you. Darlene Kirk.
Okay. First of all, we kind of fudge a little bit on the 3 minutes. You know, if somebody's in the middle of talking, we're not going to stop them. And I've run some of the meetings as vice mayor, and we've let people talk a little bit longer. And the mayor can say after the end of the public comments, if we have something that we really want to say, she will let us answer the questions or the comment or the concern. But it's very important that you do come in and you do state your case, ask your questions, and stop us on the street. Ask us the questions. I get stopped all the time at the post office. I usually send Aubrey in because I do get stopped by people, and I can stop and talk to someone while she's getting the mail. But you gotta let us know. Come to my house. I've had people come to my house and talk to me about things they're concerned about. I'm more than willing to sit down with any of you. And yes, we will answer your questions and we will take care of your problems. We have been doing it. I've been doing it for 18 years, and I know the rest of the people here will do as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Cindy Pearson.
Thank you. I think this is once again where communication comes in. Public comment is what it is. It's public comment. But there are other ways that people can come and speak to council with their issues. They can speak to the town clerk and get on the agenda if it's time at that meeting or if the issue is something the council can answer. So I think it's communication and it's hard. People don't understand quite how the town works. I can't tell you how many times I said you can't do what, or you have to do what, when I started working there, because I went from nonprofit to government. It was a huge change for me. So I just think that people need to come and attend the council meetings, get to understand them, see that there is a place where you can be, you can speak or you can get on in another way. And you can always call the town office and make an appointment to speak to one of the council members. You can, they'll come in and meet with you, or you can email them. Or if you, always you can go in the town office and speak to one of the employees. Thank you.
Thank you. Chris Bernard.
Okay, so I think there's a couple issues at play. I think only meeting twice a month, I mean, the town council has a lot of stuff to cover and a lot of stuff to get done. And I've been going to these meetings recently. And I think we have to be careful with opening up like a Q&A session in the middle of a town council meeting because they need to get through the agenda. I'm all in favor of forums like this. I think it's great. I mean, if anyone who read my statement in The Eccentric, all about participation and engagement with the entire community. I think there's definitely, like Kevin said, I think there's a great way to do some sort of hybrid situation where maybe, you know, every quarter or however often you do some sort of town hall. And I think, like Cindy said, I think you're more than welcome to make an appointment or come use your 3 minutes and talk to the council. But I think there is a challenge when you're talking, you know, even a group of 7 plus the mayor who are probably aligned on most things. I think it's really hard for them off the cuff to come up with a cogent and educated response to every question. So I think it's wise to have a little bit of time to mull it over and get back with a useful answer rather than something off the cuff.
Thank you. Kristen Noto.
I think a 3-minute comment period is actually good because it makes people kind of get their thoughts together and organize things so they're saying it in a way that's concise, and it's part of participating in your town's government to go before the council where the decorum and the structure and everything is always the same, and it's kind of a nice thing for people to experience. To Cindy's point, the town staff is very approachable and very nice, and people need to be encouraged to just stop by the town office or call them. They're so helpful, and sometimes they can address the concerns before they need to go to the town council meeting. But I think someone's first time at a town council meeting should not be when they're doing their 3 minutes. But I think it is important, and I think a town hall would be great too, to have the the structure and have the, you know, Q&A, and because on Facebook it's not a good thing, so let's do it in person.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Well, we are in a strange middle position. We could ask one more question and run over about 10 minutes, or we could do summary and closure and give everybody an extra 30 seconds. Is there a show of hands? One extra question, or should we close? Show of hands. In favor of it? Close?
Close. Yeah.
Okay. You have, let's say you have a minute and a half plus a little time, since we're running out of time, to sum up and sell yourself to the voters in the audience. First up is Darlene Kirk.
Where can you do that? I know.
Look at the draw.
I know, look at the draw. I've lived in Middleburg all my life, and this town is a part of my heart. I mean, I've lived in Middleburg all my life, and this town is my heart. It really is. I've gone to school here. I know all my neighbors. I played with the kids on the street, and now I have a goddaughter who's doing that, and she feels so safe here. She just feels like this is the town, and that's the way I feel. I've served on council for 18 years. I actually took over my mother's seat, who served on council. And she wanted to finish out her term and retire, but she passed away. So I asked council if they'd let me finish it out for her, and here I am 18 years later. But I love it. I love being able to give back to my community. It's the most important thing I feel like I've done, and I wish I can serve. I wish you would vote for me so I can continue to serve. And please, I mean this from the bottom of my heart, you can email me, you can call me, you can come visit me. My home is open to everyone in Middleburg. And if I can do anything to help anyone, I will do the best I can. Thank you, and thank you for coming. This has been a great forum.
Thank you. Chris Bernard.
Okay, so since I've decided to run for town council, it's been a fun and interesting and very educational experience. And I've gotten much more active in the town, and I've gotten to know so many really great people. And it's really kind of cemented in me that Middleburg is a beautiful and friendly and safe place. And I would love to be able to walk down the street in the evening and see a vibrant business community, and know that, you know, we've got great utilities and we're all safe. And I think it's really important that we have the right group of people up here, including the mayor, who can kind of push that vision forward and attack these problems using logic and thinking about the common good. And so really, I would love to get your vote. I think I would be a great addition to that team. But more importantly, like I've said before, I'm all about community engagement and participation. So come out and vote, whoever it's for. I'm glad that you all have come out to further educate yourselves about us and about the issues going on in town. Please ask me questions. You know, I just like Darlene, stop by my house, call me, email me, whatever it is. I'm more than happy to talk to anyone about anything at any time. So thank you. Come out and vote May 1st.
Thank you. Kevin Hazard.
Just to echo what they've said, this is so nice. We're doing this. This is my third election. The first two times basically ran unopposed, and this is wonderful. We're seeing this across the board, and I think it's really a good thing. At the Planning Commission, we had a vacancy. We got 3 people to go for it, and that's really what makes this town really good, really great even. 10 years I've been on the Planning Commission, 8 years on council. I think I have a pretty good background and experience. I think I've been good on the council and just thinking through issues and voting, always voting the way I thought was best for the town. Nothing personal, and I think you get that across the board, and I think you've seen that here. Everybody here is really in it You don't run for a town council for glory. You run for town council in a small town because you want to serve. Everybody here wants to serve. I'd like to have a third term. Please vote for me on May 1st.
Thank you. Peter Leonard Morgan.
Well, once again, thank you ever so much for all coming this evening. Being British, I'm not very good at blowing my own trumpet, but unfortunately I do have to blow it a little bit here and just say that I've had 18 months on council. I believe I bring people together on council. I'm not divisive, I'm the opposite of that. I believe I've had a few successes in bringing a well-known business into town. My wife tells me I have a lot of self-deprecating humor, so I've got to stop with that. I just feel that 18 months hasn't been enough, to be honest. I started over 50% of the way through a term. I've really got to understand a lot about how the small government works, local government works, the town of Middleburg works. I've got a lot to learn still, but I've really got my feet on the table, and I would absolutely love it if you would vote for me on May the 1st. But if you don't vote for me, I will have no hard feelings. I'll support the new council. I'd like to stay on Go Green in that case, because I think it's a wonderful committee, and I think I've found a new cause there. So thank you ever so much for coming.
Thank you. Cindy Pearson.
Well, thank you again to Middleburg Eccentric for having this tonight. What a way to go into this election. I've enjoyed working with the team that was put together. It helped me, talk through some issues and get some helpful hints from people. I know the council members, I've worked with them. I think you all, the residents, have the hard part right now. You've got to vote. I think everyone up here is very well qualified and very well ready to go ahead and be the next council members. So it's your decision. I just hope I'm one of those that you vote for. Thank you.
Thank you. Mimi Stein.
All right. I'm looking at Randy, and I was thinking about that we used to talk about Middleburg moments. And we had so many, and we would always mention all the sweet things that would happen. And the time I went to the post office, and I had an armful of gifts that were not wrapped, and Phil took them from me, and he put them each in a box and helped me ticket put the address on everything and helped me get through Christmas. Or the time I left my car running and fell asleep. And Officer Heather, knocked on my living room window to let me know. It's like, thank God it's Middleburg. Anyway, I will do everything in my power, if elected, to keep that small town Middleburg moments happening for me, for everybody else here. And I feel I have a lot to contribute. I don't look at Facebook, but you're welcome to stop me on the street for the next couple of weeks of the campaign. I'm happy to answer any of your questions, and I would really like to be on the council.
Thank you. Kristen Nagel.
I, again, like I said, have enjoyed working with the team that we put together, and that's what the council is. And in my teenage years, I was in Pony Club, and I competed on 44 different teams. It was a competition goal, but we had to work together, had to work with each other's strengths and weaknesses, and that's what every team has to do. So we can be Team Middleburg, we can be the council team, and with the help of the staff, I'm really hoping to keep Middleburg the way we all love it, make it more accessible, help out us dog walkers with some more sidewalks. But it has to be a team, and I'm a team player, so I hope you'll vote for me.
Thank you. So let's have a huge round of applause. So, many thanks to all the candidates and to all of you here for being so actively engaged in these elections. It's here in this room and at the polls on May 1st that democracy really lives. And on that day, we will have a chance to cast more votes than have ever been cast in the history of Middleburg. So it's a very special day, a very special time, and you should be very proud of this moment.
the town office where they vote. So.
Yes, but at the town, Darlene says for me to remind you that it's at the town office that we really vote. So thanks again. Be sure to vote on May 1st. Good night, good luck, best wishes. And I hereby declare this first Middleburg Town Council Forum at an end. I skipped that.